there, wherever you are tuning in from. My name is Modupe Taylor Pierce Jr. There is a senior. He's in his 90s and he's still very active. I serve as the CEO of BCA Leadership, which is a Pan-African company that is registered in Mauritius as a global business corporation, category 1. And we exist because we recognize, okay, let me put it in more colloquial terms. We're sick and tired of Africa being poor. We're just sick and tired of it. And what we recognize is the fact that where we are, Africa's poverty is the result of the fact that the vast majority of the leaders in Africa are not successful in achieving their visions, their goals, their long-term objectives. And the reasons for that is not because they wake up every morning saying, gee, how can I screw up my community today, or screw up my company or my country, but it's because they are making poor decisions from a place of lack of awareness. And so what BCA does is we provide largely peer learning and executive coaching services to leaders across Africa. And when I say leaders, I mean leaders of all shapes and sizes, of all industries and sectors. That is what we do. I hail from Sierra Leone. I was born there. I was raised in Sierra Leone, Ghana, and Kenya. So it is so good to be back home to Kenya. And just a few hours ago, we were driving past the area of Karen, which was where I spent 2 years of my formative life. And it's so good to be back home. So again, I just want to say thank you. And at this point, let me also say thank you formally to the Women on Board Network. I'm so pleased to be invited because I'm a firm believer, ladies and gentlemen, in the utility of the purpose and vision of this network. You know, because I believe, first of all, when women take leadership positions in organizations, the organizations perform better over the long term. They perform better over the long term. And I also believe that when companies have functioning and excellent corporate governance structures, these companies weather storms better and they last decades longer than companies that don't have solid boards. So therefore, it goes to form that it's important to have a solid and competent and functioning boards, but also boards that have at least 50% female representation on their boards of directors. Let me say that again. I'm convinced that when a majority of African companies and organizations have at least 50% female representation, those companies will flourish and Africa is going to experience the positive transformation that we all so clearly and dearly desire. So I'm just grateful to be here to share some insights on leading with the heart, the gut, and the mind with all of you. I recognize that we have quite a few people in the room, and I want to start first by really hearing a bit from you. I'd like for you to share some information with me. What I want you to do is to answer one question. Now, you can answer this question by writing in the chat or by raising your electronic hand. And then, I will call on you to respond verbally. The information I seek from you is this. How have you grown as a leader in the past 12 months? How have you grown as a leader in the past 12 months? I'd like to hear from a few people. I hope our administrator can help with unmuting where necessary. Go ahead, write in the chat. Or unmute yourself. Raise your electronic hand so we can hear you. If you're just joining, I am as a prelude to sharing my insights, I'd like for you guys to speak to me about how have you grown as a leader in the past 12 months. Okay, someone says, I think I've struggled to grow as a leader. Please go ahead.
And how you go about ordering it and how you pay. And also there below I can see some looks like some satisfied customers.
Esther says by attending leadership workshops. Okay, great. Any other responses? I would like to hear from you. How have you grown as a leader in the past 12 months?
Have a good weekend.
Okay. Someone says by attending the corporate governance training. Another person says by making mistakes. Okay. Another one says I've learned to be more assertive. Linda says by learning to have better ownership of my EQ. That's your emotional intelligence quota. Fantastic. I'm going to give it 1 or 2 more minutes so that we can hear from a few more people. I have, Rosemary says, I have become I've become a business investor, thereby taking on higher personal risk. Interesting. Mm-hmm. 30 seconds more. I'll take a few more comments. Laura says, by making conscious effort to attend leadership webinars, but painfully interacting and learning while working with different cultures. Okay. So in other words, moving out of your comfort zone. Vite says, through reading The Gap and The Game. Interesting. And 10x is easier than 2x. By being more proactive. Amazing. Thank you so much for these responses. Thank you very much. So I really appreciate you guys sharing this, and by practicing conscious leadership principles. You see, it's important for leaders to always be growing because the world is moving at an incredible pace, and the tools that we use to help us achieve our goals are evolving, and we must grow and evolve with them in order to ensure that we do not become obsolete. Take dentistry, for example. You know, the methods used by dentists today in performing, say, for example, root canals are quite different from what they were 20 years ago, or even 10 years ago. By the way, I should know. I've had about a dozen of them done in my teeth. As a result of the evolution in the methods used, even the term root canal surgery, which used to be synonymous to an extremely painful experience, is now no longer painful. It's not even called surgery. It's now just called a procedure. So I encourage each of you to be intentional about periodically reflecting on your growth journey, and also to be intentional about charting your next phase of growth. So my own leadership growth journey over the last 12 months can be described as learning to lead with the heart, the gut, and the mind.
Hi.
Allow me.
Yes. No, I'm on a.
Can we mute ourselves just a second? Okay, so let me just recap. My own leadership journey over the past 12 months can be described as learning to lead with the heart, gut, and mind. So let me give you a bit of context. I serve as the CEO of BCA Leadership. As I mentioned, it's a Pan-African company. We're formed really to solve the problem of leaders in Africa making poor decisions. And, when we look at Africa, we see these outcomes that the leaders themselves don't really want demonstrated throughout the continent. We see it in companies that are unable to break their cycle of unprofitability. We see it in communities that are stuck in arrested or underdevelopment. We see it in countries that cannot wean themselves off of the donor juice. We see it in people who live lives of frustration and failure as they struggle to lift themselves out of poverty or mediocre living. You see, this problem exists because, leaders suffer from a lack of knowledge, skills, and networks that leads them to make poor decisions due to a lack of awareness. Sometimes it's awareness of their options. Sometimes it's awareness of their surroundings. Sometimes it's awareness of their own strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And this lack of awareness is the problem that we exist to solve. As part of the services that we provide, we created the Made in Africa Leadership Conference, which is an annual learning conference for leaders that we have held every year in June since 2019, when we first held the first one in Kigali. Each year we change the location, okay? In June 2022, it was held in Lusaka, and in June 2023, it was held in Accra, Ghana. It's an amazing conference that delivers on its brand promise that every attendee will leave the conference with a solution to at least one problem that they entered the conference with. So now that I've given you some context, let me go back to my growth journey, because what I'm going to describe, will be easier to understand if you are aware of the context in which I work. 12 months ago, BCA Leadership, the company that I lead, was in distress, and so was I. We had completed what appeared to be a successful Made in Africa Leadership Conference in Lusaka. It was highly acclaimed by the attendees. Unfortunately, even though it was highly impactful for the attendees, it was a significant financial loss for the company. And that loss put us in dire financial straits. Even more discouraging was the fact that in the process of focusing our efforts on this one side of our business, I had taken my eye off the ball on the other parts of the business. And by August 2022, it was obvious that in almost every part of the business, revenues were shrinking, and so was morale in the company. I felt like a failure, as it looked like we were heading for the cliff of insolvency. I poured my heart out individually to a few of my board members, including the board chair, a Zambian lady by the name of Charity Lumpa. And I was advised to prepare a memo about the options available to the company and to call an emergency board meeting. To prepare the memo, I had a conversation with each member of our management team and asked them for options. None of them, bless their heart, suggested options C and D. I'll explain those in a minute. So The memo that I prepared had a number of options. Most of them were unpleasant. However, options C and D were the most unpleasant. Option C was for me to be fired by the board and for the board to appoint a new CEO and task the new CEO with steering the turnaround. That was option C, rather nuclear, at least for me. Option D was an orderly dissolution of the company. So let me make sure you understand. We had there were a number of options, but the most unpleasant was option C and D. C was basically get rid of Modupe, get a better CEO, and hopefully to turn around the company. And D was just dissolve the company in an orderly fashion. I approached the meeting with trepidation as I knew that it was possible that we could come out of that meeting with me losing a position that I had given my all to make successful. During the board meeting, the directors who had received the board memo, of course, 3 business days earlier, they listened intently as I outlined the options, and they asked questions about each. Then they did something that surprised me. They encouraged me. They informed me that they were aware of the mistakes that had been made, but they were also aware of the positive impact we had had on leaders in Africa. They expressed confidence in my ability to turn the ship around. They dismissed options C and D, and collectively we chose one of the other options. And then we fleshed out a plan, and I was tasked with executing the plan. You see, the board members demonstrated heart-based leadership, recognizing that while I had made mistakes, they were not mistakes due to a lack of motivation or bad intention. And I needed to be encouraged to recognize that I was just a couple of right decisions away from success. As part of the plan, the board of directors informed me that the company may have to cancel the 2023 Made in Africa Leadership Conference. Yikes. I was informed that the management team, led by me, would have to demonstrate sufficient traction in the form of revenue generation for the 2023 conference by January 30 of 2023 for the board to even approve going forward with the conference in Accra. The board members knew that this conference was my pride and joy. And they knew that canceling the conference would be a huge emotional blow for me. Yet, they led with their gut. They were courageous enough to inform me that the conference may have to be canceled because conducting unprofitable conferences was not a sustainable strategy for BCA leadership. However, they also gave me a way out. They provided me a way out of the predicament, helping me to flesh out a plan for the recovery, including a plan for the conditions under which I would be able to save my pride and joy, the annual conference. So they also led with their minds by doing this. You see, the board led with their heart, encouraging me, their gut, having the courage to make difficult decisions that they knew I might not like, and their mind. And it energized and equipped me for the crucial next 3 months. So I went back to the management team and we started to implement the plan. We conducted a management retreat during which the team had the opportunity to pour out their hearts about the situation and collectively recommit to the vision. Prior to the retreat and after the retreat, I made the decision to make 2 personnel changes in the organization that were long overdue, but I had procrastinated on because, well, simply because of a lack of courage on my part. The management team recognized the need for me to refocus on one part of the business, and we collectively decided to adjust some of the roles and responsibilities of members of the team so that I could focus on the most pressing areas of need of the company. In short, influenced by the leading of the board, I led the management team with heart, gut, and mind to implement the plan. The plan worked. The month of January 2023 was our most successful January ever, and we achieved the threshold set by the board for us to receive approval to proceed with the Made in Africa Leadership Conference in Accra in 2023. The personnel adjustments were painful, but they were necessary, and the team made new hires to cover the gaps created by the tough decisions. We executed an impactful conference that did not bleed red, and we did not take our eye off the ball on other parts of our business. This resulted in a new level of growth and performance for BCA in 2023. And today we're on course for a successful year, which is a far cry from where we were a year ago. See, folks, I grew as a leader by learning first to lead with the heart. What does leading with heart mean? It means caring for your followers' welfare more than your own. By including the option of the board terminating my own employment and by accepting the possibility of sacrificing my beloved leadership conference on the chopping block, I demonstrated that I was willing to sacrifice my interests in favor of the interests of keeping the profitable side of the business going of the company. The board members themselves also led from the heart by encouraging me to press on and not taking the easy route of replacing the CEO. I also grew as a leader by learning to lead with gut. What does leading with the gut mean? It means having the courage to make timely and tough decisions, even if they are uncomfortable or carry the risk of failure. See, my failure to make the timely and tough personnel decisions in 2022 contributed significantly to the decline of BCA in 2022. And I learned a valuable lesson about making the tough calls, even when my gut gets twisted in knots over it. And I saw the BCA directors demonstrate courage by holding my precious baby ransom, putting conditions on me for the conference, which they knew would not be pleasant for me, but they also knew it was what the company needed. Additionally, I grew as a leader by learning to lead with the mind. What does leading with the mind mean? It means having the humility to recognize how little I know that I need to know and seeking to expand my knowledge in order to make better decisions. Let me say that again. Leading with the mind is having the humility to recognize how little I know that I do need to know and seeking to expand my knowledge in order to make better decisions. You see, to prepare the board memo, I sought perspective and advice from the team. During the management retreat, which was facilitated by an external facilitator, I spent most of the time listening as the management team shared perspectives and proffered solutions. The strategies that resulted in our turnaround came primarily from ideas and suggestions of the team. The board members led with their minds by applying their experience and expertise to considering the options and fleshing out the plan for the option that was finally chosen. They didn't just leave me alone to dig my way out of the mess. They applied their wisdom to the solution. I shared at the start of my talk that I believe that when companies in Africa have at least 50% female representation on their boards of directors, that they will weather storms better and last longer. Folks, let me inform you, the board of directors of BCA Leadership has 7 members. 4 of them, 4 are women. And I believe that this ratio contributed significantly to our ability to weather the storm of 2022. And I am grateful to have this board. You see, folks, all of us on this call are either currently serving on boards or we aspire one day to be serving on boards. My hope and prayer is that as you serve, you will be the kind of leaders that will lead with the heart, with the gut, and with the mind. CEOs and executive directors will need this from you. When you do this as a board member, you will not only increase the chances of success and sustainability of the company, but you will also demonstrate the leadership that the CEO can also emulate for the good of the company and all of its employees. And this behavior will then permeate through the management levels and the supervisory levels of the company. I hope you understand what I'm saying. The type of leadership that you demonstrate in the boardroom as directors is going to find its way into the management team, and it's going to find its way down the ranks of the company. And this is critical. Why? It's important because Africa needs leaders who care more for their people's welfare than they care for their personal welfare. Let me say this again. Africa needs leaders who care more for their people's welfare than they care for their personal welfare. And this behavior starts in the boardroom. It's also important for a second reason, because Africa needs leaders who have the courage to make timely and tough decisions, even if they carry the risk of failure. Let me say that again. Africa needs leaders who have the courage to make timely and tough decisions, even if they carry the risk of failure. And once again, this optimal behavior starts in the boardroom. Lastly, it is important because Africa needs leaders who are conscious of how little they know and intentional about expanding their knowledge to make better decisions. Africa needs leaders who are conscious of how little they know and intentional about expanding their knowledge to make better decisions. Again, it starts in the boardroom. Folks, if we act like we know it all in board meetings, the CEO will act like he or she knows it all. And then that will go down to the management team, to the supervisory team. And ultimately, we will have lots of bad decisions being made by the blind leading the blind. So yes, Africa needs leaders who will lead with heart, gut, and mind. So let me close by asking you one more reflective question. You can answer this question now or at any time during the Q&A session. And I'm happy to take your questions and your reflections. My final question of you is, how do you plan to grow as a leader in the next 12 months? How do you plan to grow as a leader in the next 12 months. Thank you very much. I'm going to pause here to hear back from you, either your reflections on what I've shared or your reflections in response to my question.
Oh my goodness. Please, let's just clap for Modupe. That was awesome. That was awesome. Can I hear some clapping or see some virtual claps, please? Awesome, awesome. Thank you, Modupe. Now let me confess. I sit on Modupe's board, and I had no idea of the impact of the decision that we made during that board meeting. Now I know. Thank you for sharing, Modupe. Now I know. Ladies and gentlemen, let us engage with Modupe. Let's, glean from his leadership journey, get lessons from him. Please feel free to make any comment or to ask any question of Modupe. Now, Modupe, you told us quite a lot about, the impact of that decision and what BCA was going through at that particular point in time. What has been the highlight of your leadership journey?
Thank you, Catherine, and thank you for making the confession. I wasn't sure whether I should share with everybody that you are one of the board members, and certainly you have contributed significantly to our growth and the ability of BCA to weather the storms.
Thank you.
I think some of the highlights have been the fact that I've been learning by doing and learning from mistakes. It's not easy for us as leaders, as CEOs, to admit that, probably half the decisions we make are not the best decisions. And unfortunately, we sometimes spend so much time trying to cover up the decisions we made or the effect of those decisions, or worse yet, doubling down on the bad decision because of pride and arrogance. And instead of really being reflective and learning from the experiences and having the humility to admit that we've made mistakes and to look back and say, okay, how can I learn from this? So these are things that I'm very passionate about because I have seen it in my journey. The reality is what we're trying to do, what we are doing at BCA Leadership has never been done before. Nobody has tried to transform all of Africa before. Okay? It hasn't been done successfully before. So we are breaking new ground. We are making it available for leaders throughout the continent to have access to the knowledge that they need in order to make good decisions. We are creating conferences that are learning conferences where people don't just come to collect business cards and leave because they've had a few days of fun, but they actually come with problems that they have and they leave with solutions to those problems. Those are things that are fairly revolutionary in Africa. And therefore, when you do something that hasn't been done before, it is natural that there will be mistakes along the way. But it is also important that as the leader, we keep learning and we keep learning from the mistakes. And we make sure that that way we don't repeat the same mistakes over and over. And for me, that has been the highlight of my journey. It's the opportunity to learn. And for that to happen, I have had to create an environment in which the team around me is comfortable coming to me and saying, I don't think we got that one right, Modupe. I think that we could have done that better. And I don't just mean the board members, because that's fairly easy for them. But I'm talking about those who report to you need to have the opportunity to speak truth to your power. So let me pause there in case there are, I could keep on going on and on, but let me pause in case there are more questions or reactions.
Great. Speaking truth to power. How do we do that for our political leaders, Modupe?
How do we speak truth to power for our political leaders? So it requires courage, for sure. But I would like to flip the question around. It is incumbent on the leader to create the environment in which his or her followers and colleagues can speak truth to them. My father has been a preacher for decades. And I remember one of the things that categorized him would be after he would give a sermon, he would ask, hey, how was the sermon? And of course, what everybody would say, oh, it was great. And he said, okay, great. So tell me one thing you liked about it and one thing that could be done differently. Said one thing you liked about it and one thing that could be done differently. Now, by asking that kind of question, he made sure that he was creating the comfortable space for people to criticize and to speak some truth to his power. And that is important for us. And the higher we go in organizations, especially in politics, the more important that becomes. Because by the time you become the president of a country, then it's difficult to find a board of directors that might tell you that, you're not that smart a genius as you thought you were. So it's important for us to create that. It's important for presidents to create that, for CEOs to create that, executive directors to create that. And they create that by asking the right questions. And the right questions is not, how did I do? Or do you like this? It's asking questions like, what could be improved? What are the things that I'm doing that is making your job harder? How could we do this better? Those are questions that then elicit that kind of feedback. And of course, when you ask the question, you have to be willing to listen. Recently, of course, there's been lots of jokes about, the fact that, some investors are being given 3 options. And sadly, when feedback was given, he doubled down on it. That is unfortunate. And you don't have to be a leadership scholar to know that. And that happens because there hasn't been an environment of speaking truth to power. I apologize if my video looks dark. For reasons that are known best to the hotel, there's been a power outage at the hotel. So, but I hope you can still hear me because I'm using a different internet connection. So please keep questions.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. And ladies, great. Ladies, gentlemen, if you have questions, please feel free to ask those questions. Modupe, as we prepare for questions to come in, I am aware that you learned some really serious leadership lessons from your mother. And I have listened to your story about you driving down the road, down the street with her, and her imparting some very serious leadership lessons. Can you please share something about that?
Yes, indeed.
Not sure what has happened to your sound. Can everybody hear Modupe well?
Yes, I can.
Is it okay, or is it just me?
I can hear him.
Okay, great. Please go on.
So, about leaders leading,
Hello, Modupe. Sorry to interrupt you, but we cannot hear you clearly.
This is unfortunate. Okay, please give me 1 minute. Let me see if there's something I can get the hotel to help with on the internet.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Great. As we wait for Modupe to sort out his sound, I see that Bithe, who is one of the BCA coaches, is online. Bithe, are you online? Bithe? Bithe, are you online? Bithe, can you hear me? Okay, I think Bithe cannot hear me. Mercy, is there any other BCA coach online?
A few are watching directly on YouTube.
Okay, great. Modupe is back. Modupe, please go for it.
Please let me test the audience first of all. Now,
Not good. Bithe, can you hear me? Great. As we wait for Modupe and perhaps Bithe, allow me to just come back and say, are you there? Try again, Modupe.
hello, good afternoon. Can you hear me now?
Can we make do with that? Ladies and gentlemen, can we do with that?
Yes, I think so.
Okay, great. Modupe, you can go for it.
I do apologize.
No worries.
So yes, please feel free to interrupt me if the sound quality goes bad. As I was saying, I was 23 years old and I was a captain in the Army during a time when there was a military government in place. And for anybody who's lived through a military government, you know, that means pretty much any Army officer has a lot of power on the streets. And I had been up in what's called the provinces, the war front, and I came back into the main city for just a few days, and I visited my mother. Being the good son that I am, when I visited my mother had mentioned that she wanted to go to the bank, and I said, oh, fine, let me drive you to the bank. As an Army officer, I always had, especially during the war, I always had two young sort of private soldiers with me as bodyguards. So they sat at the back. My mother sat in the front with me as I drove. Driving through town towards the bank, there was an intersection, a busy one, where a policeman was directing traffic. And he was directing traffic. In fact, this afternoon when I was going through Nairobi traffic, he reminded me of some of the policemen, because sometimes they seem to fall asleep while they're directing traffic. And you have people from two sides coming at the same time, and you're wondering if this policeman is really on his game. Well, the same thing happened at that time, and another car all because the policeman wasn't paying attention. So we both kind of stopped, and I jumped out of the car, you know, in my full military uniform, and went over to the policeman and I berated him. Now, so after I was done, came back into the car, didn't even take 20 seconds, 30 seconds. And, you know, sort of, and I was there saying, can you believe this policeman? What he did is, this is horrible. He almost got me into an accident. I can't believe these people need to do their jobs. And I was driving, and of course, the two young soldiers at the back, you know, they were like, yes, sir, it's true. These people, they don't pay attention. They need to know that. So this happened for about a minute or so or two, and we were driving. And somewhere around there, we hadn't even gone half a mile. My mother said, pull over. Okay, so I pulled over. And then she turned to the two young soldiers at the back and gave them some small change and said, please go and buy groundnuts or something. Basically gave them an errand for them to leave the car. Okay. As soon as they left the car, she turned to me and she says, what was that? I said, what do you mean? What was that? She says, no, what was that? What do you mean, Mama? That. Of course, by the time I knew what she was talking about, but I was trying to play dumb. And I said, well, you know, the policeman didn't do his job and da, da, da. And she said, yes, I know. But is that how you handle it? Because you have a military uniform? Says, so suddenly you become an arrogant ass? Is this the son that I raised? Says, you do know that this uniform can be taken from you at any time. And then what do you become? Says that man is an adult. He's a father. If he's wrong, you take him to the side and correct him. You don't do it in front of everybody, demean him. Says that's what you were taught. And I expect you to do better. Now I have to confess, by this time I was starting to regret the whole idea of being a good Samaritan and taking my mother to the back. But I learned a very valuable lesson that day, which was that as leaders, we need to lead not with our power or authority, but we need to lead with our hearts. Yes, we need to lead with our gut. My mother didn't say, don't address the issue with the policeman. But she definitely said, there's a right way to address it and a wrong way to address it. Okay, I hope you guys heard that. Let's take another question or comment.
The power of female leadership, Modupe. And once a mother, always a mother, right? Even to an army captain.
Yes, indeed.
Great. Any question, ladies? And as you prepare, perhaps Mbithe, you can tell us a little bit about the Nairobi cohort of BCA. You are on mute. Yes. Mbithe, you are on mute.
Yes. Good afternoon. You can hear me?
Yes, very well. Thank you.
Okay. Let me share a little bit about the Nairobi cohort. We meet 4 times. We meet once a month. So that means 12 times in a year. And during the cohort meeting, you have an opportunity to interact with other peers during the peer learning lab. You also have an opportunity thereafter to join the coaching. because the cohort offers executive coaching. So we invite you to join us during those sessions. Thank you, Catherine. And I realized at my background, there's actually a bus. Yeah. So join us in the leadership development through coaching, BCA leadership.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Dithe. Modupe,
And my
would you
apology, when you were calling me earlier on, my mic wasn't working. Thank you.
That's fine. That's fine. Modupe, would you like to say a few words about MLC 2024 for those who are on the call and perhaps would like to join that conference in 2024?
Yes, please. Absolutely. And I do want to apologize if anybody has put anything in the chat room. During the power outage, I lost access to the chat messages. So, so Catherine, if you can help me with reading some of the chat messages, then I can kind of respond to them.
Great, I will do that. And
right.
Caroline Mugadi, once Modupe has answered this question, perhaps you can ask your question directly. Thank you. Go on, Modupe.
Fantastic. So you know, the Made in Africa Leadership Conference is coming to Nairobi in 2024. I am so excited about it because, you know, we actually had wanted to come to Nairobi earlier, but then COVID happened. So, but I do believe that this is the right timing. We are expecting about 300 people at the conference, half of which will come from outside of Kenya. It's going to be an amazing learning experience and learning opportunity for anybody that's on this call right now. So companies, corporations, their management teams are encouraged to come to this conference because you're going to learn about different aspects of leadership. We also encourage the nonprofits, organizations to also come. Their leaders should also come, because at this conference, you're going to have leaders from for-profit companies, not-for-profit companies, some parastatals, and also you'll have some youth leaders that will come together and in small groups be supported in learning from each other and from the guest speakers that we're going to have at the conference. It's going to be 2 days. And again, what we do is make sure that your individual needs are met at the conference. So I look forward to seeing all of you there. Part of the reason why we're in town this week is to certainly meet with a number of potential partners for conducting the conference. And so far, the reception and the response has been amazing. And the big part of it is because at the fundamental level, what this conference achieves and inspires is a mindset shift for us in Africa. And that mindset shift is this, that every problem that we have in Africa, the solution is already in Africa. Let me say that again. Every problem that we have in Africa, the solution is in Africa. So as leaders, we need to be more intentional about finding those solutions amongst ourselves. Thank you very much. You can see the registration link on the chat room. It's just been posted. So feel free to register by just clicking on that link.
Absolutely.
Back to you, Catherine.
Thank you very much. And I have asked Mercy also to share the link to the report for 2023 so that those who are thinking of signing on can also see what went on in 2023 in Ghana. Caroline, would you like to ask your question?
Thank you very much. Forgive my typo. I didn't mean to call you Dr. Module.
It's just a typo. I just realized it. So I asked Doctor, there's no way I can edit that. So the incident you have mentioned with your mother has really triggered some thinking in my mind with regards to the power of the women, you know, first mother, first ladies in Africa with regards to our leaders. And I was just wondering, if after this incident you had with your mother, how did that impact your leadership? Did you just switch and make the transition, or did it take time? Did you receive feedback? How did it impact your leadership journey? And I was just thinking, how can we transfer this to our leaders? Because it seems like they would listen to their mothers more, and maybe their wives too. So how we can extend that? Yeah.
I love the way you hesitated before you added that second part. So I can say with confidence that what that experience did for me was it helped me understand how vulnerable all of us are, or how vulnerable I am to hubris. So, you know, just to make sure everybody's clear, hubris is an extreme form of pride. And when someone is given positions of authority and you know, and power, it is very easy for that to lead to a sense of larger than life pride and then hubris. If for no other reason than, you know, generally followers tend to want to tell you what they think you want to hear. And the more that you get that affirmation, the more you start to think that you're smarter than you really are. And, you know, the more you start to think that those who want to tell you anything other than the best thing you wanted to hear are simply just out to get you and are enemies of progress. So, but being aware of how quickly one can move from being a good and effective leader to being, quote unquote, as my mother said, an arrogant ass, is helpful because it helps for one to stay grounded. Now, it has also helped me personally because since that time, I also developed a closer relationship with Jesus Christ. And that has also helped me to stay grounded, because the reality is that we all need that grounding as leaders to stay humble. I recently had a coaching client who's a very, very smart person, very brilliant. Unfortunately for this person, he believes sincerely that not only is he the smartest in the room, in the company he's in, but that he knows everything that needs to be known for the most part. And he is totally oblivious about the fact that there is so much about his company that he doesn't know and that he needs to know. So even when we discussed the iceberg principle, his first reaction was to dismiss it out of hand as the purview of the less initiated. This is a dangerous situation, and it is an affliction that afflicts many of our political leaders, because it doesn't take more than 2 weeks of people around you telling you how smart you are, how good you are, how your ideas must have descended straight from God, for you to actually start to believe that nonsense. So Yes, I would love it if all of us had a mother like mine to tell us that. Sadly, I cannot attest to the potential that we would listen as much to our spouses, but certainly, if we, for all people who have, for all women, I think the lesson here to be learned is the huge impact that you can have on the leaders. And one more thing to point out that I want us to understand. You see,
Modupe, your sound has gone again, eh? Sorry.
I'm so sorry.
Okay. No, not yet. Try what you did the other time. As Modupe sorts out his sound, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you have signed up to the Women on Boards annual conference, which is happening next week. If you haven't, please do. It is going to be 3 days full of learning. Try Modupe. Nope. You're on mute now. No. Sound was bad. Okay. So go on. Okay. As we wait. No. As we wait for Modupe, Kantai is going to share the registration link, the details to the conference that is happening at White Sands next week. So if you haven't signed up, please do sign up. There are also quite a number of other exciting programs that Women on Boards has. So please do reach out to us. Kantai, please share the link. For those who are on the call and have not yet become members, please do reach out to us and we will guide you through the process of becoming a member and what benefits you get once you are a member. Modupe, are you back now? Okay. Right. I have admitted you. Just try now. Okay.
Hello.
Yes, that's better. We can now hear you.
Okay, fantastic. I apologize. I'm going to try to keep my video off, and hopefully that might make it a little less dodgy. I was sharing that, you know, in response to the question about how women can be effective in steering other leaders. I want to make sure that we don't lose one key point. Notice that my mother cleared the room before she spoke to me. It is, and we've seen it a number of times, and I've seen people, when powerful leaders make mistakes, then they go on social media and they blast them or they call them out in public. I can testify that that is not terribly helpful. At least if your goal is to get the leader to change. Even in the Bible, when David committed that horrible sin with Bathsheba and killed Uriah, Nathan didn't go out on the Times Square and blast David in public. He spoke to him in private. And that's a very powerful lesson that I think all of us as influencers, as leaders, can take. That it's important to have those crucial conversations in a space where we take away as much as possible the possibility of the leader trying to salvage his or her ego instead of listening. Back to you, Catherine.
Thank you. Thank you very, very much, Modupe. Nancy, do you have a question? I can see Nancy, please go ahead. We are coming to the end, ladies and gentlemen. If you have a question, let me know. Nancy, I can see your hand is up. Please do ask your question.
Hello, no, I don't have a question. It's just to appreciate Dr. Modupe. That was a very powerful presentation, and especially the lesson from his mother.
I do hope that as, and thank you, Nancy, for that. I do hope that as women, we are, you know, we keep sending those lessons. We keep teaching our children some of these lessons, because if they don't learn from us, they are going to learn from the world. And the world is not as kind as we often are. So please do share lessons with your children as well. Any comments before we call it a weekend? Ladies and gentlemen.
I would want to make a comment about
yes, Mary,
Dr. Modupe.
please. Yes, please go ahead. I know you're on the road.
Yes, I'm on a map there, and I was very excited when he talked about the way board some things say that you don't agree with them. Sometimes they are supposed to put where he talks about how to go with those, I call them dynamics at the board. I think I'm very excited about that, and I would want to listen to more of that, those board dynamics, because I believe in it changes also with the time. I think this is a time when everybody is aware of whatever is happening, their rights, their whatever, and there is also a lot of knowledge all around IT and all these things. So I would like to hear more on those topics. So invite me next time.
We'll definitely do, Mary. You are now on my, dial list. I will definitely do that. And please do join us whenever you can. Christine White, I see you have a question. Christine, do you want to ask your question? Christine's question, Modupe, is, have you ever failed as a leader?
Many times. In fact, I would say that, and especially as an entrepreneur, you know, one of the reasons why we struggle sometimes in leadership and to take leadership positions is because we're embarrassed by the possibility. We are afraid of the possibility of failure. We're embarrassed by failure. And the reality is that we have to understand that there is no successful conglomerate business person, whatever you want to call it, Dangote or Bill Gates or any of those, who hasn't had loads of failure. The key is that you fail fast and fail forward. The people who don't make it eventually are those who don't learn from their mistakes. And that also is made harder when you are surrounded by hubris and yes people. But when you learn from your mistakes and you accept that as a leader, there are times when you're going to make decisions that are wrong. And the key is as soon as you know they're wrong, you confess it, you admit it, and you move forward. I'll give you a quick example. I have a mechanic, bought new tires, gave it to the mechanic and said, please change the tires. He changed the tires. For reasons that I can only chalk up to, you know, my youthfulness, I forgot which kind of tires I had given to the mechanic. So a month later, I called the mechanic and said, I gave you new tires to change. I see some different brand. What happened? Did your boy steal my tires? And he said, no, we changed the tires. This is what we did. And, you know, of course, my tone was somewhat accusatory. And so I said, okay, well, let me, you know, thanks, but I'm not happy. So I then looked through my records because I keep my receipts, etc., and I saw it and I realized I had made the mistake. Now, I had two choices. I could just sort of say, Oops, okay. And then I don't call the mechanic, I move on and pretend that nothing happened to salvage my ego. But I knew what was the right thing to do. So I called the mechanic and I said, you know, sir, I said, I've checked my records and I realized that I was wrong and you were right. You did change my tires and I owe you an apology. The mechanic said to me, he said, there was a pause and he said, oh, wow. He said, Mr. Pierce, he said, that's the first time this has ever happened to me. I said, what? That somebody accused? He said, no, that somebody has apologized when they know they were wrong. He said, I so appreciate that. I know we didn't take your tires, but I really appreciate the fact that you took the time to call because you could have just pretended that nothing happened. Now, that's an opportunity that has been gained. And I can assure you that the relationship and my ability to influence that mechanic has increased exponentially because of that incident, as opposed to the opposite that would have happened. Because like a good African, you know, he wouldn't have complained to anybody else, but I can assure you that the trust that he has in me would have gone down. Back to you, Catherine.
What a lesson. What a lesson. Leaders are confident enough to say, I am sorry, I made a mistake. I see a comment from Nora, one of our BCA coaches, very seasoned, saying, I'm taking away that lesson from the mother. What we say in our everyday conversations to our children never goes to waste. I am encouraged to continue being a leader right from my household. Thanks, Modupe. We always have loads to learn from your stories. We appreciate you. Thank you, Modupe. As we bring this to a close, I just want you to look through the chat again. Mercy has shared two very important links. The first is how you can register for MLC 2024, which is happening here in Kenya in June. 12th and 13th of June, I believe, Modupe. I may be wrong. Is that the date?
You are correct. 12th and 13th of June.
Absolutely. You please block your calendar. Please register for MLC 2024. And there's an early bird fee for those who register now. So please do register. The second and very important document that Mercy has shared is the MLC 2023 report. So Modupe said that it's not just about coming and talking at these conferences and going away. It's about finding solutions. It's about impact. And so in the report, you will find what transpired at the MLC 2023. You will find the impact there in that report so that you can make an informed decision about attending, and I'm confident you will do so, attending MLC 2024 here in Nairobi. For those of us who have been attending MLC sessions, they have been impactful. I attended the first ever virtual one when COVID hit, and then I traveled to Zambia, attended the first physical one, and this year, Ghana, Accra, Ghana, and it was amazing. The speakers are amazing. The peer learning hubs are amazing. Labs are amazing. Please sign up for MLC 2024. Kantai has also shared two very important links. Please go to your chat and you will find a chat where she has shared the registration link for our upcoming conference next week in Mombasa. So please sign up. I might just convince Mercy and Modupe to stay back so that they attend that conference. So if you haven't signed up, please reach out to us. Please sign up so that we have 3 full days of learning and fun. And just, self-care, just taking care of ourselves. And pigia ringili pole. Modupe, you did not get that one. Just saying sorry to our bodies for suffering, So, so please sign up. Please sign up for that. Kantai has also shared a link for those who haven't joined the Women on Boards Network. We have great programs. We have leadership programs. We have corporate governance. We have mentorship. We have Global Women on Boards Network. We have coaching in partnership with CDI and all of that. So please become a member and benefit from the member rates that we have. And if you have, the young ones in your house, the juniors, the 13, 12 years and above, and before they get their first job, we do have the junior membership wing. So please do sign up, get them to sign up for that as well, so that they grow knowing that they are good leaders and can become leaders indeed. Let me just see if there are any other. Oh, I see. Thank you, Jacqueline. She says, I'm learning a lot from all the way from Malindi. Thank you so much. And thank you for bringing Dr. Modupe. Great lessons. Thank you very, very much. Claire Wanyama says, great lessons learned on leadership. Thank you very much. Hey, Sarah Jessie says, Nairobi, here we come. Sarah, I'm looking forward to seeing you. Saw you at the Accra MLC 2023, and I'm looking forward to seeing you. Mbitha says, great leadership lessons. Thank you, Modupe. Jen Kilonzo, thank you, Dr. Modupe, for a very insightful discussion. Thank you. So great thoughts. Thank you, Modupe. Wonderful. So Modupe, I'm going to give you the last word. What do you want to say to the people who are still on the call? We had close to 70. I think I saw 70 at one time. It's a weekend, so people are trying to get to home and to go out and so on and so forth. But what are the last few tips you'd like to share with us on this topic, or generally that you'd like to pass on? Over to you, Modupe.
Thank you so much, Catherine. And again, I'm turning my video off only because I'm just worried about the internet bandwidth. First of all, I want to say thank you for this opportunity. And I want to say kudos to the Women on Boards Network. There are times when sometimes in leading, you do not realize the impact that you are having. One of the things that Mercy, my colleague, shared with me was, as we met with different companies, was she said, it's interesting, Modupe, there are lots of Kenyan companies that have been around for 70 years or 80 years. We don't have that in West Africa. And I said, yeah. I said, why is that? And she says, because of a lack of corporate governance. So just understand what that means in terms of economic power and job creation. And the Women on Boards Networks is one of the bulwarks that is going to make sure that that not only continues, but it improves even more than that. Secondly, I want to say my sincere apologies for the breaks in transmission. I take full responsibility for it. And certainly if the Women on Boards Networks ever invites me again, I will make sure that we don't have this kind of interruption in our internet capacity. Thirdly, I just want to encourage all of you women to learn from the story of how my mother did it. Again, you have more influence than you can ever imagine, because you could be the mother or the wife of an influential leader. Yes, you yourself are going to be a leader as well. But whenever you have the opportunity to influence, take the time, pull the person aside, speak to their ear. Even when you do it in, when you do it one-on-one, even if their immediate reaction is not positive, I guarantee you that sometime late at night, maybe at 2 o'clock in the morning, your voice will still ring in their ear, and it will cause a change. Thank you to all of you. I'm going to put on my video so you can see me as I express my final thanks. God bless you, and God bless Africa.
Asante sana. My brother from another mother. This mother was so powerful. Wow. Thank you, ladies, for joining us. It has been an amazing session. I've taken away so many lessons from Modupe. You know, those lessons that he doesn't pass on to us when we are having a board meeting. At least I got to hear them today. Thank you so, so much. Ladies, I'm looking forward to seeing you next week and to seeing you at the MLC 2024. Thank you very much. God bless. Have a great weekend and see you around. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Catherine.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Catherine.
Thank you, Nora.
This is Penina. I would like to pass my regards to Modupe, my brother from Sierra Leone.
Hello,
I'm on
Sister
the drawing
Penina,
board.
how are you?
Thank you, Modupe. Welcome.
It's good to hear your voice.
Nice to hear you too. Thank you.
Wow. Thank you. Thank you so much. You.
Thank you. Oops.
Thank you, Mbithe. Thank you for jumping in.
You're
Asante
welcome, Catherine.
sana. Asante.
Yeah.
It was
Thank
an
you,
amazing
Catherine, so
session.
much.
Thank you.
Mm.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Mercy, for arranging. Thank you, Kantai, for arranging all of this. Asante sana. Thank you, Mercy. Thank you. And thank you, Jackie Malomba. I will join you in Malindi. Oh,
Karibu sana.
thank you.